In the small, sleepy town of Willow Creek, life moved at a slow and predictable pace. The streets were lined with old oak trees, their branches stretching wide like arms, welcoming anyone who passed by. Neighbors knew each other by name. Kids played freely in the yards, and everyone looked out for one another. But all of that changed one chilly autumn morning when tragedy struck the heart of the community. It was a day no one would ever forget. News spread quickly through whispers and phone calls. Emily, a bright and kind-hearted teenager, had been involved in a car accident late the previous night. No one could believe it. She was just 17, full of dreams and laughter, always ready to lend a hand or share a smile. Whether she was helping her classmates with school projects, volunteering at the local animal shelter, or simply chatting with the elderly woman down the street, Emily had a way of making people feel seen and valued. Her sudden passing left a void that felt impossible to fill. Friends gathered on porches, hugging each other tightly as tears streamed down their faces. Parents stood frozen in disbelief, wondering how something so cruel could happen to someone so young. Even those who barely knew her personally couldn't help but feel the weight of the loss. It wasn't just a family mourning. It was an entire town grappling with grief. The days leading up to the funeral were heavy with sorrow. People came together to plan the service, determined to honor Emily's memory in the best way they could. Her favorite songs were chosen, photographs of happier times were collected, and stories about her kindness poured in from every corner of the community. The church where the funeral would take place was decorated with white lilies, her favorite flower, and soft candlelight flickered gently, casting a warm glow over the somber scene. On the morning of the funeral, the sky seemed to reflect the mood of the town. Dark clouds loomed overhead, threatening rain, as if nature itself was paying tribute to the girl who had touched so many lives. By the time the service began, the church was packed to capacity. Every seat was filled, and some stood along the walls, unable to find space but unwilling to miss saying goodbye. The air was thick with emotion. Sobs echoed softly, and tissues were passed around silently. As the ceremony unfolded, friends and family took turns sharing memories of Emily. One spoke of her infectious laugh that could light up even the darkest room. Another recalled how she once spent hours teaching a nervous classmate how to solve a math problem, refusing to give up until they got it right. A teacher remembered how she'd stay after school to clean up classrooms without being asked, always leaving things better than she found them. Each story painted a picture of a girl who lived her short life with purpose and love. When the service ended, the pallbearers carefully carried the coffin outside. Everyone followed, forming a solemn procession behind it. As they stepped into the cool autumn air, a strange moment caught everyone's attention. A crow landed gracefully on the polished surface of the coffin, its dark feathers gleaming against the dull grayness of the day. For a few seconds, everything went still. The murmurs stopped and all eyes turned toward the bird. Some gasped, others whispered nervously, and a few tried to shoo it away. But the crow didn't budge. It sat there staring intently at the crowd, as if it understood the gravity of the moment. No one knew what to make of it. Was it a sign, a coincidence, or something more mysterious? Whatever the reason, the image of that crow perched atop Emily's coffin lingered in everyone's minds long after the funeral ended. Little did they know, this was only the beginning of a series of events that would leave the entire town questioning everything they thought they knew about life, death, and the unseen connections between them. As the funeral procession moved slowly toward the cemetery, the crow remained a constant presence. It flew from tree to tree, always staying within sight of the mourners. Its dark silhouette against the overcast sky seemed almost deliberate, as if it were guiding the group rather than simply following. People couldn't help but glance at it nervously, their minds racing with questions. Was this bird just acting on instinct, or was there something more meaningful behind its behavior? By the time the burial began, whispers about the crow had started to spread. Some people recalled old superstitions they'd heard growing up. How crows were often seen as omens, messengers between worlds, or symbols of mystery and transformation. Others dismissed these ideas as nonsense, chalking it up to coincidence. But no matter what anyone believed, The bird's persistence was hard to ignore. Even the gravediggers paused for a moment to stare at it, shaking their heads in quiet disbelief. After the final prayers were said and the crowd began to disperse, Emily's mother lingered by the grave. She stood alone, clutching a bouquet of lilies so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Her heart felt heavy, weighed down by grief she didn't know how to carry. As tears streamed down her face, she noticed the crow perched on a nearby tombstone, watching her intently. For reasons she couldn't explain, she didn't feel afraid. Instead, she felt curious. There was something about the way the bird looked at her, as if it wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. That night, sleep eluded her. Every time she closed her eyes, images of the crow flashed in her mind. Finally, unable to stay still any longer, she got out of bed and wandered into Emily's room. The space still smelled faintly of her daughter's perfume, a mix of vanilla and lavender, and it brought both comfort and pain. Sitting on the edge of the neatly made bed, she picked up one of Emily's favorite stuffed animals, a small owl with threadbare wings. Clutching it to her chest, she let herself cry again, wishing desperately for some kind of sign that her daughter was okay. Just then, a soft tapping sound broke the silence. Startled, she looked toward the window and saw the same crow from earlier, pecking gently at the glass. Her breath caught in her throat. What was it doing here? Slowly, hesitantly, she walked over and opened the window. To her surprise, the bird didn't fly away. Instead, it hopped inside, landing gracefully on Emily's desk. It tilted its head, studying her with those piercing black eyes. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Then, without warning, the crow began pecking at something on the desk, an open notebook filled with sketches and scribbles. At first, she thought it might be trying to tear the pages apart, but when she stepped closer, she realized it wasn't damaging anything. It was pointing, nudging, almost as if it were trying to draw her attention to specific parts of the notebook. Her hands trembled as she reached for the book. Flipping through the pages, she discovered drawings of crows in various poses, accompanied by notes written in Emily's familiar handwriting. One page read, "Crows are smarter than we think. They remember faces, solve problems, and even hold funerals for their dead." Another entry talked about ancient myths where crows were considered guardians of secrets or guides for lost souls. But what really caught her eye was a sentence scrawled near the bottom of a page. "What if they're trying to tell us something?" She sat down heavily in Emily's chair, overwhelmed by what she was reading. This side of her daughter was completely new to her. Sure, Emily had always loved animals, but she never mentioned having such a deep fascination with crows. Had she been keeping this passion hidden? And why? The more she read, the more questions bubbled up in her mind. But one thing became clear. The crow sitting on the desk wasn't there by accident. Somehow it was connected to everything Emily had been exploring. The bird suddenly flapped its wings and flew back out the window, disappearing into the night. Left alone with the notebook, she felt a strange sense of determination wash over her. Maybe this was the sign she'd been hoping for. Maybe Emily was reaching out in her own unique way, using the crow as a bridge between worlds. Whatever the truth was, she knew one thing for certain. She needed to understand what her daughter had been working on. If nothing else, it would give her a way to feel close to her again. Over the next few days, she dove headfirst into Emily's research. She visited the local library, flipping through books about birds and folklore. She spent hours online, scrolling through articles and forums dedicated to corvid enthusiasts. She even reached out to a wildlife expert who lived on the outskirts of town, hoping he might shed some light on the mysterious behavior of the crow. Everywhere she went, the bird followed. Not literally, of course, but its presence lingered in her thoughts, urging her forward. Word of her quest began to spread around Willow Creek. Neighbors stopped her on the street to ask how she was holding up, and she found herself sharing snippets of what she'd learned about crows. To her surprise, many people admitted they'd noticed strange things too. A shopkeeper claimed he'd seen the same crow perched outside his store every morning since the funeral. A teacher said it had appeared during a recess, startling students by landing right next to them before flying off. Each story added another layer to the mystery, making it harder to dismiss as mere coincidence. One evening, while going through more of Emily's belongings, she stumbled upon a folded piece of paper tucked inside the notebook. Unfolding it carefully, she read the handwritten note. "If you want answers, follow the path where shadows meet light." The words sent a chill down her spine. What did it mean? Shadows meeting light? She turned the phrase over in her mind, searching for clues. Then it hit her. The forest trail Emily used to hike often ended at a spot where sunlight filtered dramatically through the trees, creating patches of shadow and brightness on the ground. Clutching the note tightly, she decided to visit the trail the next morning. Though part of her was hesitant, what if she found nothing? Another part felt compelled to see where it led. After all, this was her daughter's world, her secret project, and maybe, just maybe, it held the key to understanding the connection between Emily and the crow. As she drifted off to sleep that night, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being guided step by step toward something extraordinary. The next morning, the air was crisp and cool as she set out for the forest trail. The sun had just begun to rise, casting long shadows across the ground. She walked slowly, her mind replaying the cryptic note over and over. Follow the path where shadows meet light. It sounded poetic, almost like something out of a storybook, but she couldn't shake the feeling that it meant something real, something Emily wanted her to find. As she stepped onto the trail, memories of her daughter flooded back. This was one of Emily's favorite places, a quiet escape where she'd go to think or sketch in her notebook. She could almost picture her there now, sitting cross-legged on the damp earth, pencil in hand, completely absorbed in whatever caught her imagination. The thought made her smile through the ache in her chest. Even in grief, moments like these reminded her how much joy Emily brought into the world. The path wound deeper into the woods, sunlight filtering through the canopy above in uneven patches. She followed it carefully, keeping an eye out for anything unusual. At first, everything seemed ordinary. The rustling leaves, the distant chirping of birds, the occasional squirrel darting up a tree. But then she noticed something that made her pause. A crow perched high on a branch ahead, watching her intently. It wasn't just any crow. It looked exactly like the one that had appeared at the funeral and later in Emily's room. Her heart skipped a beat. Was this another sign? She took a deep breath and continued walking, glancing back occasionally to see if the bird was still following. Sure enough, it flew from branch to branch, staying within sight but never getting too close. The farther she went, the more the forest seemed to change. The trees grew taller, their trunks twisted with age, and the air felt heavier, charged, with an energy she couldn't quite explain. Finally, she reached the spot she remembered, the place where sunlight streamed through the trees, creating a mesmerizing pattern of light and shadow on the forest floor. Standing there, she scanned her surroundings, unsure of what to look for. Then something caught her eye. Carved into the bark of a massive oak tree was a design she didn't recognize. An intricate symbol shaped like a crow in flight, its wings spread wide. Beneath it were faint scratches that looked like letters, though they were worn and difficult to read. She ran her fingers over the carving, feeling the grooves beneath her fingertips. There was something deliberate about it, as if someone had put great care into making sure it would last. Her pulse quickened. Could this be what Emily's note was referring to? She pulled out the crumpled piece of paper from her pocket and reread the words, "If you want answers, follow the path where shadows meet light." This had to be it. Taking a step back, she studied the area around the tree more closely. That's when she spotted it, a patch of disturbed soil near the base of the trunk. Something had been buried here. Without hesitation, she knelt down and began digging with her hands. The dirt was soft, easy to move aside, and after only a few minutes, her fingers brushed against something solid. Her breath hitched as she uncovered a small wooden chest partially hidden beneath layers of leaves and moss. It was old, weathered by time, but still intact. Her hands trembled as she lifted it from the ground and brushed off the dirt. For a moment, she simply stared at it, wondering what secrets it might hold. Taking a deep breath, she opened the lid. Inside, she found a collection of items that seemed to belong to Emily. A stack of photographs tied together with string, a bundle of handwritten letters, and a smaller notebook wrapped in twine. On top of everything lay a single black feather, glossy and smooth, unmistakably belonging to a crow. Tears welled up in her eyes as she picked up the feather, holding it gently between her fingers. It felt like a message, a tangible connection, to her daughter. Curious and overwhelmed, she set the feather aside and reached for the notebook. Untying the twine, she flipped it open and began reading. The entries inside were different from the ones she'd seen before. These weren't just notes about crows, they were deeply personal reflections, filled with thoughts and dreams Emily hadn't shared with anyone. One passage stood out. "I don't know why I'm drawn to them, but I can't stop thinking about crows. They feel like messengers, like they're trying to tell me something important. Maybe they're guiding me toward answers I haven't even asked yet." Another entry talked about strange dreams Emily had started having after rescuing an injured crow earlier that year. In her dreams, she described vivid scenes of flying alongside the bird, soaring above the town, and seeing things she couldn't possibly know about. Each dream ended with the same phrase whispered in her ear: "Find the truth." At first, she dismissed them as random imaginings, but the more they persisted, the more convinced she became that they held meaning. Reading these words, she felt a mixture of awe and sadness. Emily had been searching for something bigger than herself, and she'd kept it hidden, afraid maybe that no one would understand. But now, standing in the middle of the forest with her daughter's secrets laid bare before her, she realized how brave Emily had been. She hadn't let fear stop her from exploring the unknown, even if it meant going it alone. As she closed the notebook, she glanced up and saw the crow perched nearby, watching her silently. For the first time, she didn't feel afraid or confused. Instead, she felt a sense of peace, as if Emily were right there beside her, smiling and saying, "You found it." Whatever mysteries remained, she knew she wasn't alone in uncovering them. With renewed determination, she packed the items back into the chest and headed home, ready to share what she'd discovered and to keep following the path her daughter had started. When she returned home, the weight of what she'd found pressed heavily on her mind. The wooden chest sat on the kitchen table, its contents spread out like pieces of a puzzle waiting to be solved. She stared at the items for a long time, her thoughts swirling with questions. What did it all mean? Why had Emily gone to such lengths to bury these things in the forest? And why had the crow led her there? She decided to start with the photographs. They were snapshots of moments Emily had clearly cherished. Pictures of sunsets over the hills, close-ups of crows perched on fences, and even a few of the town's oldest landmarks. But one photo stood out among the rest. It showed a weathered stone marker half hidden by vines located somewhere deep in the woods. She didn't recognize it, but something about the image felt significant. Flipping it over, she saw a note scribbled on the back: "Where history sleeps." Her curiosity deepened. What was this place? Was it connected to the dreams Emily wrote about in her notebook? She tucked the photo into her pocket, determined to investigate further. Next, she turned her attention to the letters. They weren't addressed to anyone in particular, almost as if Emily had written them to herself, or perhaps to someone she hoped would read them someday. Each letter spoke of longing, wonder, and a desire to understand life beyond what could be seen. One passage struck her especially hard. "Sometimes I feel like I'm being called to do something important, but I don't know what it is yet. All I know is that the crows seem to know more than they let on. Maybe they're trying to show me how everything is connected, the past, the present, and whatever comes after." Reading those words, she felt a lump rise in her throat. Emily had been searching for answers about life and death, just as everyone else did in their own way. But unlike most people, she seemed to believe the answers were hidden right here in Willow Creek, waiting to be uncovered. With each new discovery, the pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. She realized that Emily hadn't just been fascinated by crows. She'd been using them as guides, a bridge between the world she lived in and the mysteries she couldn't explain. The crow that had appeared during the funeral wasn't an omen or a random coincidence. It was part of a larger story, one Emily had been piecing together before her untimely passing. The next morning, she shared her findings with a few trusted friends from the community. At first, they listened skeptically, unsure of what to make of it all, but as she showed them the photographs, the letters, and the notebook, their skepticism gave way to intrigue. One neighbor mentioned hearing stories about an old burial ground near the edge of the woods, though no one had visited it in decades. Another recalled seeing strange carvings similar to the one on the oak tree scattered throughout the forest, though no one knew who made them or why. Encouraged by their interest, she decided to visit the spot marked in the photograph. Gathering a small group of volunteers, including some of Emily's closest friends, they set out early in the afternoon. Armed with flashlights, notebooks, and a sense of purpose, they ventured deeper into the woods than any of them had ever gone before. The air grew cooler as they walked, and the sunlight dimmed beneath the thick canopy of trees. After nearly an hour of searching, they finally stumbled upon the stone marker from the picture. It was smaller than she expected, partially covered by moss and tangled roots. Clearing away the debris, they revealed faded inscriptions carved into the surface. Though weathered by time, the words were still legible. Here lie the keepers of truth. No names followed, only those enigmatic words. Everyone fell silent, staring at the marker in awe. What truth was it referring to? Who were the keepers? As they examined the area around the marker, they noticed something unusual: a series of shallow depressions in the ground, arranged in a circular pattern. It looked almost like the foundation of an ancient structure, long since collapsed. Digging carefully, they uncovered fragments of pottery, rusted tools, and shards of glass. Someone had once lived here, or at least spent a great deal of time here. But who? And why had they left behind so little evidence of their existence? Back in town, word of their discovery spread quickly. People gathered at the local cafe, eager to hear updates and share theories. Some believed the site might have belonged to early settlers, while others speculated it could be tied to Native American tribes that once inhabited the region. A few suggested it might not even be human-made at all. Perhaps it was a natural formation imbued with spiritual significance. Whatever the truth, one thing was clear. Emily had somehow known about this place and wanted others to find it too. Inspired by her daughter's determination, she organized a meeting to discuss the next steps. Together, the townsfolk decided to preserve the site and continue exploring its history. They reached out to historians and archaeologists, hoping to learn more about its origins. In the meantime, they began sharing stories of their own connections to the land, unearthing forgotten tales passed down through generations. Slowly but surely, the town came alive with renewed energy, united by a shared mission to honor Emily's legacy. Through it all, the crow remained a constant presence, appearing at key moments as if to remind everyone of the bond they now shared, not just with each other, but with the girl who had brought them together. For the first time since her passing, the grief began to ease, replaced by a sense of hope and purpose. Emily may have left this world, but her spirit lingered, guiding them toward truths that transcended time itself. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity in Willow Creek. The discovery of the mysterious stone marker and the ancient site around it sparked a wave of curiosity and excitement among the townsfolk. People who had never given much thought to the forest now found themselves drawn to it, eager to uncover more secrets hidden beneath its canopy. Conversations buzzed with theories, stories, and questions, some practical, others wildly imaginative, but all centered on one thing: Emily. Her mother became the unofficial leader of this newfound effort, driven not just by grief, but by a growing sense that she was piecing together her daughter's final project. She spent hours poring over old maps of the area, cross-referencing them with Emily's notes and sketches. One evening, while examining a faded map from the town archives, she noticed something peculiar: a series of symbols marked along the edges of the woods. They matched the crow carving they'd found on the oak tree near the chest. It was as if Emily had left breadcrumbs for them to follow. Encouraged by this clue, she shared her findings with the group. Together, they decided to explore the locations marked on the map. Each spot revealed something new: a cluster of oddly shaped stones arranged like a circle, a hollowed-out tree trunk containing fragments of weathered parchment, and even a small cave adorned with carvings similar to the ones at the burial site. With every discovery, the picture grew clearer. Someone or something had been trying to communicate through these artifacts, using symbols and patterns to tell a story. But what story? That question lingered in everyone's minds. Some believed it was tied to the town's history, perhaps shedding light on events long forgotten or deliberately concealed. Others thought it might be connected to Emily's dreams, the ones where she flew above the town and saw things she couldn't possibly know about. Whatever the truth, it was clear that Emily had been onto something profound, something that reached beyond the boundaries of ordinary life. One afternoon, while exploring yet another location marked on the map, the group stumbled upon an unexpected sight: a mural painted on the side of a rock face deep in the woods. The colors were faded, almost blending into the natural tones of the stone, but the image was unmistakable. It depicted a crow soaring above a village, its wings outstretched, as if protecting the people below. Surrounding the bird were smaller figures, humans working together, planting crops, building homes. Beneath the mural, etched into the rock, were words written in a language no one recognized. Though none of them could read it, the message felt universal: unity, guidance, protection. The mural struck a chord with everyone who saw it. For many, it reinforced the idea that crows weren't just birds. They were symbols of connection, wisdom, and resilience. And for Emily's mother, it felt like confirmation that her daughter's fascination with crows wasn't random. There was meaning behind it, a thread that wove through the past and present, tying everything together. As news of the mural spread, more people joined the effort to preserve and understand the discoveries. Historians arrived from neighboring towns, bringing expertise and equipment to document the sites properly. Volunteers worked tirelessly to clean up the areas, ensuring nothing was damaged during their explorations. Even children got involved, drawing pictures of crows and sharing their own ideas about what the symbols might mean. The entire community came alive with a shared sense of purpose, united by the memory of a girl who had dared to ask big questions. Yet, amidst all the excitement, there were moments of quiet reflection. Emily's mother often found herself sitting alone in the evenings, flipping through the notebook or holding the black feather close to her heart. She thought about how much her daughter must have loved these mysteries, how passionate she had been about solving them. It made her smile even as tears filled her eyes. In a way, Emily was still here. With every clue they uncovered, every artifact they preserved, she felt closer to her than ever before. One day, as the group gathered to discuss their progress, someone brought up an interesting observation. The crow kept appearing at key moments, always nearby when they made a significant discovery. Whether it perched silently on a branch or circled overhead, its presence seemed deliberate, almost protective. This led to a lively debate about whether the bird was truly acting as a guide or simply responding to the commotion caused by their searches. But no matter what anyone believed, one thing was undeniable: it had become a symbol of hope and continuity for the town. Inspired by this, the group decided to create a tribute to Emily and the crow that had brought them together. They planted trees along the forest paths she used to walk, each one marked with a plaque bearing her favorite quotes about kindness, curiosity, and courage. Near the cemetery, they erected a statue of a crow in flight, its wings casting shadows that danced across the ground in the sunlight. At the base of the statue, they placed a plaque with a simple inscription: "For the girl who showed us the way." Word of Willow Creek's transformation spread far beyond the town limits. Visitors began arriving from nearby cities, curious to see the sights and hear the stories. Local businesses thrived as tourists stopped for meals, souvenirs, and guided tours of the forest. What had started as a personal journey for one grieving family had blossomed into something much larger, a testament to the power of curiosity, community, and love. Through it all, Emily's mother continued to feel her daughter's presence everywhere she went. Whether it was in the rustling leaves, the distant call of a crow, or the laughter of children playing near the new trees, she knew Emily was still part of their lives. And though the mystery hadn't been fully solved, not yet anyway, she took comfort in knowing that her daughter's spirit lived on, guiding them toward truths that transcended time itself. As weeks turned into months, the town of Willow Creek continued to evolve in ways no one could have predicted. What had started as a personal quest for answers had grown into something much bigger, a movement that touched every corner of the community. People who once kept to themselves now found themselves working side by side, united by their shared mission to uncover the mysteries Emily had left behind. The crow, too, remained a constant presence, appearing at moments that felt almost magical, as if it were watching over them all. One crisp autumn morning, the group gathered at the edge of the forest to discuss their next steps. They had already mapped out several key locations marked on the old map, but there was still one spot they hadn't explored, a clearing deep in the woods labeled only with a star symbol. No one knew what to expect, but there was an air of anticipation among them. It felt like the final piece of the puzzle, the place where everything might come together. The journey to the clearing was longer and more challenging than any of their previous treks. The path was narrow and overgrown, forcing them to push through thickets of brambles and climb over fallen logs. Yet, despite the physical strain, spirits were high. Conversations flowed easily as they walked, filled with laughter, speculation, and memories of Emily. Someone even joked about how she would have loved this adventure. Her boundless energy and curiosity seemed to echo through the trees. When they finally reached the clearing, they stopped in awe. It was unlike anything they'd seen before. In the center stood a massive stone altar, its surface etched with intricate carvings of crows, trees, and swirling patterns that looked like wind or water. Surrounding the altar were smaller stones, arranged in a perfect circle, each one marked with symbols similar to those they'd found elsewhere. The entire area felt sacred, as though it had been untouched for centuries. At first, no one spoke. They simply stood there, taking it all in. Then, one of the volunteers noticed something glinting in the sunlight near the base of the altar. Carefully, they knelt down and brushed away the dirt to reveal a small metal box, rusted with age but still intact. Inside, they found a collection of items: a bundle of dried herbs tied with twine, a handful of smooth river stones, and a folded piece of parchment. The parchment was brittle, but the writing on it was legible, a message written in elegant script. To those who seek truth, remember this: the bond between worlds is not broken, but hidden. Look beyond what you see, listen beyond what you hear, and trust the messengers who guide you. The word sent chills down everyone's spines. It was as if someone from the past, or perhaps another realm entirely, was speaking directly to them. For Emily's mother, it felt like the culmination of everything her daughter had been trying to tell her. Crows weren't just birds. They were bridges, guides, and guardians of secrets that transcended time and space. And Emily, with her dreams and notebooks, had somehow tapped into that ancient wisdom. Back in town, the group held a meeting to share their findings. As word spread about the message and the mysterious contents of the box, excitement reached a fever pitch. Some interpreted the note as proof that the spirit world was real and accessible if only people paid attention. Others saw it as a metaphor for human connection, the idea that we're all linked, even when we can't see the threads binding us together. Whatever the interpretation, it sparked conversations that went far beyond the discoveries themselves. Inspired by the message, the townsfolk decided to take action. They organized workshops to teach children about nature, storytelling, and the importance of listening, not just to each other, but to the world around them. Local artists created murals depicting crows and other symbols from the forest sites, turning blank walls into vibrant reminders of their journey. Even the school curriculum was updated to include lessons on local history, folklore, and environmental stewardship. But perhaps the most impactful change came in the way people treated one another. The shared experience of uncovering these secrets had softened hearts and opened minds. Neighbors who had once barely exchanged pleasantries now greeted each other warmly, offering help without hesitation. Strangers visiting the town often remarked, on how welcoming everyone seemed, how connected the community felt. It was as though the act of coming together to honor Emily's memory had awakened something dormant within them, a sense of belonging and purpose. Through it all, the crow continued to appear at unexpected moments. Sometimes it perched on rooftops, watching silently as people went about their day. Other times it flew overhead during gatherings, circling lazily as if blessing the proceedings. Its presence became a source of comfort, a reminder that they were part of something greater than themselves. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Emily's mother sat on her porch, staring out at the oak tree in her yard. She thought about everything that had happened since her daughter's passing, the discoveries, the connections, the transformations. It wasn't easy, of course. Some days the grief still hit her like a tidal wave. But on nights like this, surrounded by the hum of crickets and the distant call of a crow, she felt a profound sense of peace. She realized then that Emily's legacy wasn't just about solving mysteries or uncovering secrets. It was about bringing people together, reminding them of their shared humanity and the beauty of looking beyond the surface. Whether it was through the stories they told, the projects they worked on, or the simple acts of kindness they extended to one another, Emily's spirit lived on in every corner of Willow Creek. And as the crow landed gently on a nearby branch, tilting its head to look at her, she smiled softly, whispering under her breath, "Thank you." As the seasons changed and winter approached, Willow Creek settled into a rhythm that felt both familiar and new. The town had transformed in ways no one could have imagined just months earlier. What began as a quest driven by grief and curiosity had blossomed into something enduring, a sense of unity and purpose that lingered long after the initial excitement of discoveries faded. People talked less about solving mysteries now and more about how those mysteries had reshaped their lives. The crow, once seen as an eerie symbol, had become a beloved figure in the town. Kids drew pictures of it in school, adding colorful feathers and wide, friendly eyes. Shopkeepers placed small statues of crows on their counters, claiming they brought good luck. Even the local cafe introduced a drink called the Crow's Brew, with proceeds going toward preserving the forest sites. It was as if the bird had woven itself into the fabric of daily life, a quiet reminder of the connection between past and present. One chilly December evening, the community gathered at the town hall for their annual holiday celebration. This year, however, things were different. Instead of the usual carol singing and cookie baking, the event was dedicated to honoring Emily's memory. Tables were set up with displays showcasing the artifacts they'd uncovered, the photographs, letters, and carvings, as well as artwork inspired by her story. A slideshow played on a projector screen, featuring images of the forest, the mural, and the mysterious stone altar. At the center of it all stood the statue of the crow, adorned with twinkling lights and surrounded by fresh evergreen branches. During the ceremony, several people took turns sharing stories about how Emily's legacy had impacted them. One elderly woman spoke about how she'd reconnected with old friends while volunteering to clean up the forest paths. A young boy described how he'd started paying closer attention to birds after hearing about Emily's fascination with crows, even keeping a journal of his observations. Another person recounted how the project had inspired him to repair a broken relationship with a neighbor, realizing that forgiveness was another kind of bridge. Toward the end of the evening, Emily's mother stepped up to speak. She held a single, black feather in her hand, turning it gently between her fingers as she addressed the crowd. Her voice trembled at first, but soon steadied as she poured her heart out. "When we lost my daughter, I thought I'd lost everything," she began. "But what I didn't realize then was that she wasn't really gone. She left behind pieces of herself, in her notebooks, in the forest, in every person she touched. And through you, all of you, I found her again." Her words hung in the air, met with silence and then soft applause. Many wiped away tears, moved not just by her speech but by the truth it carried. In losing Emily, the town had gained something invaluable, a deeper understanding of what it meant to be connected, to each other, to nature, and to the unseen forces that bind us all. After the ceremony, the group decided to keep the momentum going. They formed a committee dedicated to continuing the work Emily had started. Their goals were simple, yet ambitious. Preserve the forest sites, document their findings, and share the lessons they'd learned with others. They also planned to host regular events, storytelling nights, guided hikes, and workshops on topics ranging from wildlife conservation to creative writing. Each activity was designed to honor Emily's passions while fostering a sense of community. Spring arrived, bringing with it new growth, not just in the forest but in the hearts of the townsfolk. The trees planted along the trails began to bud, their leaves unfurling like tiny green hands reaching for the sky. Children played beneath them, laughing and pointing at the crows that perched nearby. Visitors from neighboring towns came to see the murals and statues, marveling at how a tragedy had sparked such beauty and resilience. One day, while walking through the woods, Emily's mother stumbled upon something unexpected. Near the base of the oak tree where the chest had been buried, she noticed a patch of wildflowers blooming brightly despite the shade. Among them was a single crow's feather, glossy and untouched by time. Picking it up, she felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. It was as if Emily were saying, "Keep going. There's still more to discover." That night, she sat down with the notebook and wrote her own entry. Unlike the others, which were filled with questions and musings, hers was a message of hope. "You showed us how to listen," she wrote. "How to look beyond what's obvious and find meaning in the smallest details. You taught us that connections matter, that they're the threads holding everything together. Thank you for showing us the way." Word of Willow Creek's transformation continued to spread, drawing attention from far beyond the town limits. Journalists wrote articles about the community's efforts, calling it a testament to the power of love and curiosity. Artists visited to capture the spirit of the place in paintings and poems. Even researchers took an interest, studying the ancient symbols and carvings in hopes of unlocking their secrets. Yet, despite the outside attention, the heart of the AO movement remained firmly rooted in the people who lived there. For Emily's mother, life slowly began to feel lighter. The sharp edges of grief softened, replaced by a warmth that came from knowing her daughter's memory was alive in every corner of the town. She still missed her deeply, of course, but now that ache was accompanied by pride and a sense of wonder. Every time she saw a crow or heard its distinctive call, she smiled, reminded of the extraordinary journey her daughter had set into motion. And so, Willow Creek continued to thrive, shaped by the girl who dared to dream big and ask bold questions. Though the mysteries of the forest hadn't been fully solved, they didn't need to be. What mattered most was the way they'd brought people together, teaching them to see the world and each other with fresh eyes. As long as the crows flew overhead and the wind whispered through the trees, Emily's spirit would live on, guiding them toward truths that transcended time itself. Years passed and Willow Creek became a place unlike any other. The town wasn't just known for its charming streets or the lush forest that surrounded it. It was celebrated as a beacon of hope, curiosity, and unity. People from all over the country visited, not just to see the mysterious carvings or the statue of the crow, but to experience the spirit of connection that seemed to emanate from every corner. What had once been an ordinary small town had transformed into something extraordinary, a living testament to the power of love, community, and the courage to seek answers. The crow, too, remained a constant presence, though its appearances grew less frequent as time went on. Some said it only showed up when someone needed guidance or reassurance. Others believed it had simply done its job, leading the townsfolk to the truths they were meant to uncover. Whatever the reason, the bird's legacy endured. It became a symbol of resilience, transformation, and the unseen threads that bind us together. Even children who hadn't been born when Emily passed away knew the story of the crow and how it had changed their town forever. Emily's mother often found herself reflecting on the journey they'd taken. She no longer felt weighed down by grief, though she still missed her daughter deeply. Instead, she carried a quiet sense of gratitude for the memories, for the discoveries, and for the way Emily's life had inspired so many. Every now and then she'd visit the forest, walking along the paths lined with trees planted in her daughter's honor. Sometimes she'd sit near the stone altar or beneath the oak tree where it all began, listening to the rustling leaves and imagining Emily beside her, smiling. One summer afternoon, she decided to take a solo hike through the woods. It had been a while since she'd ventured this far, and she wanted to revisit the clearing with the stone altar. As she walked, she noticed how much the forest had grown. Wildflowers bloomed in vibrant clusters, and sunlight filtered through the canopy in golden beams. The air smelled fresh, carrying the faint scent of pine and earth. For a moment she closed her eyes, letting the sounds of nature wash over her, the chirping of birds, the gentle hum of insects, and the occasional rustle of leaves. When she reached the clearing, she stopped short. Something was different. In the center of the stone altar sat a single black feather, glossy and untouched. Around it, someone had placed small offerings, smooth stones, dried flowers, and bits of colored string tied into knots. It was clear that others had been here recently, leaving tokens of gratitude or remembrance. Her heart swelled with emotion as she realized what this meant. This place wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to everyone who had been touched by Emily's story. She knelt beside the altar, picking up the feather carefully. Holding it in her hand, she felt a wave of peace wash over her. It was as if Emily were standing right there, whispering, "You did good." Tears welled up in her eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of joy, pride, and relief. All the pain, the sleepless nights, the endless searching, it had all led to this: a town transformed, lives enriched, connections forged. On her way back home, she stopped at the cemetery. Emily's grave was adorned with fresh flowers, left by visitors who never knew her but felt connected to her story. Someone had placed a small figurine of a crow next to the headstone, its wings spread wide as if ready to take flight. She smiled softly, brushing her fingers against the cool marble surface. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "for everything." Back in town, life continued its steady rhythm. The workshops, storytelling nights, and guided hikes had become cherished traditions, drawing both locals and tourists alike. Children grew up learning about the importance of curiosity and kindness, inspired by the girl who had dared to dream big. And whenever a crow appeared, whether perched on a rooftop or flying overhead, people paused, smiled, and remembered. Though the mysteries of the forest had never been fully solved, they didn't need to be. What mattered most was the impact they'd had on the people of Willow Creek. They had taught everyone to look beyond the surface, to listen closely, and to trust in the connections that tie us together. These lessons weren't confined to the town. They rippled outward, touching anyone who heard the story. In the end, Emily's legacy wasn't about the secrets she uncovered or the artifacts she left behind. It was about the way she brought people together, reminding them of their shared humanity and the beauty of looking beyond themselves. Through her dreams, her notebooks, and the crow that seemed to guide them all, she had shown them that even in loss there is light, and that sometimes the smallest acts of curiosity can lead to the greatest transformations. As long as the crows flew above Willow Creek and the wind whispered through the trees, Emily's spirit would live on. Her story served as a reminder that we are all part of something larger than ourselves, connected by invisible threads that stretch across time and space. And though the journey may never truly end, the steps taken along the way are what make life meaningful.